Chapter 28, Steering Systems and Integral Steering Gears, Day 2, Video 1, Power Steering Gear. The main part of the power steering unit here, so we need to make sure that we understand that the steering gear or the steering system is a manual steering system with power assist. So that way if we have a failure in our power steering system, it still reverts back to the manual steering. So for the power assist part of this, what we've got here is we are using hydraulic fluid pressure, the principles of hydraulics, to have a pressurized fluid working on one side of that power piston or other side to assist us with a right hand or left hand turn, and then able to vary the pressure there to give us more power assist or less. All of that happens within the steering gear. We'll be touching on a couple of the systems here, or the components of the system, the rotary valve and the tension or the torsion bar. So what I've got here is kind of just the general components of our power assist system. We'll start here at the reservoir. So the reservoir's got several functions here. Is to obviously store the oil, allow the air, if we have any air in the system, for that to make its way out of the fluid, and then gives it a time for that fluid to stay in here and then the heat to transfer out so that we can cool the fluid so it doesn't get too hot and then the fluid starts to break down. Coming out of our reservoir, we've got the suction line coming over here to our power steering pump, driven off the engine. The example here is a rotary vane pump, gear pumps, any of those are fine. Just this example happens to be the rotary pump. This is just going to create the pressure, so anytime the engine's running, we are creating power steering pressure. This one happens to have an internal pressure relief valve, so as we are pressurizing the fluid, the little pressure relief valve here will allow excess fluid pressure to unseat the relief valve and then flow back around into the front side of the pump. So now we've got the pressurized fluid coming out in a high pressure line and then coming out here to the steering gearbox itself. Input from the steering wheel here, so a spline shaft that hooks into the steering shaft up to the steering wheel. And then now the first section it's going to is our hydraulic control valve. And this is that rotary valve. So we've got pressurized fluid coming into the center here, and depending on if we're making a right or left hand turn, it will direct that oil through internal passages, through this line, say here, and now it's pressurizing this side of the oil, right, working around here, and now that pressurized oil is working against this surface of the piston here and here and here to assist that steering piston to move back this way to the left. The other side would be opened up to a pressure return to the pump, be allowed there, or to the reservoir, and the low pressure side there. So our power assist would be pushing that piston back this way, making the other turn. Again, internally would change the connection from the pressure line to the port on the other side of the piston, now pressurizing this surface here and then opening up the other side to the return and then back to the reservoir. So a couple of things we've got here is the rotor valve, and in the center of that is that torsion rod. So that's the connection between the steering wheel linkage through here to the worm gear on the steering gearbox. What we've got here is a recirculating ball steering gear. So these are all ball bearings here, and there's passages on the inside that allows those balls that as we are turning and rolling it, they will cycle their way through that worm gear up through the passage and back in. So they are recirculating those ball bearings back around within that worm gear. And then this is just kind of a general overall view of the steering gear in the system. Again, the reservoir, the engine-driven pump, suction line, so it's drawing the fluid out of the reservoir, pressurizing it. Now we've got a high pressure line coming in here into the steering gear, which is the rotary valve right in there, directed through the steering gear, and when it's done, it comes back through the low pressure side and then returns to the reservoir.